Herzlich willkommen im Mantra-Podcast. Mein Name ist Johanna und ich freue mich, mit dir in die Welt der höchsten Worte und Klänge einzutauchen. Obwohl ich schon lange Yoga übe und auch unterrichte, habe ich die Kraft und Schönheit der Mantras erst vor ein paar Jahren für mich entdeckt. Mit meinen inspirierenden Gästen möchte ich dir hier ihre vielfältige Bedeutung, Wirkung und Klänge näher bringen. Ganz viel Freude beim Zuhören und Mitchanten. James Boag is an internationally known student and teacher of Sanskrit and whole life yoga. With a background in languages and literature, James went to teach English in Asia in 1999, where he soon began to discover the wonders of yoga and Sanskrit. During subsequent years of study in Mysore, James completed a Sanskṛit Masters Degree while also giving many courses on the Bhagavad Gītā, Yoga Sūtra and Yogic Mythology. His teachings invite and guide practitioners to integrate the timeless wisdom and principles of yoga into the journey of life beyond the mat. Hello and welcome, James. I'm very glad to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Johanna. Happy to be here. Thank you.
Would you like to say some words about yourself, continuing a little bit the introduction that I just gave?
Well, so I'm James and I'm very pleased to be talking about mantra and Sanskrit mantra because I think it's such a wonderfully nourishing and powerful thing to engage with and to explore. I always loved singing, but when I was it was in the early 2000s and I was living in Thailand and I experienced a kirtan where we were singing in Sanskrit and I just felt so wonderful. And I'd already had that experience. At that time, I'd already had the experience of singing in several languages. I grew up in England, but I also studied French and Italian. So I'd sung in those languages. I'd lived in Japan and Thailand, and I'd sung Japanese and Thai songs. I knew a couple of Spanish songs already at that point. And when I sung in Sanskrit, it was just, wow, this is amazing. And I found it so amazing that it motivated me to begin to try to study Sanskrit. And I was very fortunate. At that time, I was teaching at a university, at Chulalongkorn University in Bangkok. I was in the English department, but in the same Faculty of Arts, literally just one floor away from my office, was the office of a wonderful teacher called Ajahn Tasani, who already at that time had been teaching Sanskrit at the university, as well as Pali and Thai, for more than 30 years, I think, already at that time. At least more than 20 years. And she was a wonderful teacher, and she agreed to start working with me one-on-one. And during the same period, I'd also been studying yoga texts with my first meditation teacher, who was a wonderful teacher. He was a direct student of two great Indian masters last century. And when I was studying the text with him, that also was contributing so much to my motivation to learn Sanskrit. And I started off with grammar, and that was sometimes quite heavy going. You know, I didn't study classical languages. I just studied modern languages. I just went to the local state school in England. So I had no background in Greek or Latin, but I was highly motivated. And what I found was when the grammar exercises, which was the first year or so I was studying with Ajahn Tasani, it was really trying to get a foundation in the grammar of Sanskrit, or Samskrita, as we might say. And when I was doing my hours of homework, whenever I needed that little bit more motivation, I would just sing. I would just sing Sanskrit mantras, kirtan songs, and some of the hymns and verses that my teacher had introduced me to. So my meditation teacher, Larry, he'd also taught me some hymns from the Kashmiri Shaiva tradition. And I'd begun reciting Bhagavad Gītā a bit. And then I'd been introduced to kirtan songs. So whenever the grammar got too much, I would just turn to the singing. And not that long after that, I started to share kirtan. Started off once a week at the yoga studio in Bangkok, where I also taught asana. And then when I left Thailand in 2007, I continued to share kirtan as whenever I could, really. And that's continued ever since. So yeah, very pleased to be having a chat with you today about this wonderful topic.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. I love that because it's what I always talk about in the podcast, that we don't actually need to study Sanskrit to be able to chant mantras. And actually sometimes knowledge can make it harder to tap into the feeling. And so, yeah, I love how you told it that actually to disconnect from the mental level, you did the chanting practice to have more the feeling connection to the mantras. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think sometimes I say, with kirtan practice, kirtan reaches the parts that other techniques aren't always able to reach. And when we sing, it's one of the wonderful things about singing generally, but also kirtan especially perhaps, because of the intention of what we're orienting towards with the song. But very immediately when we sing, obviously it's a physical action, so it recruits the bodily powers, and it's sensory. All the senses at least can be involved, because as well as the obvious sound, the sound has flavor and texture and fragrance, and we're paying attention. Maybe if we're in a group, we'll be paying attention to the person leading the song. We may be paying attention to the different sounds, to the melody. So very quickly it recruits all these different capacities that we have as a human being and invites them to all participate in this present moment, which is basic ingredients for yoga practice. But as you suggest, it's not that one needs to study in depth to gain access to so many of the amazing benefits of the practice, and it all begins with the energy. Just last week I was giving a weekend intensive on it's a teacher training program here in Switzerland that will be running over the next couple of years, and it was the first session that the group had gathered. And at various junctures during the weekend, I shared a song, or we sung a mantra here or there. And one song, I deliberately didn't talk about what it is suggesting or invoking. And one of the people in the room said, "Oh, can you tell us a bit what it means? Because I don't feel so comfortable when I don't know what it means." And I mean, so I explained that, well, we could spend the next 20 hours beginning to unpack all the rich layers of meaning that this kirtan song, which it was a song to Rama, and it has so many different layers of meaning embedded in it through the stories that are associated with the names and so on. But what I invited the people to do was this, when you say, for example, if you sing a mantra like the Maha Mantra, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you sing these sounds, just making the sound Ram, it has a very different feel to if we just say Rum. And when we have these lovely, rich vowel sounds that are such an important part of the Sanskrit expression, just making those vowel sounds has a very tonifying, cleansing, harmonizing effect on our whole being. So as you suggest, Johanna, we can dive in with a sense of, if we're open and we give ourselves to the song, then it will generally give a lot back to us.
Yes, totally. I have one question for you before we start diving into the mantra that you're bringing to us today. So what inspires or moves you the most right now?
What inspires or moves me the most right now? Wow. Well, that's quite a big question. Well, today I've been speaking with a friend who's recently had a diagnosis, which could be quite scary. And the way that he is responding to it, I find very inspiring. And more globally, I would link that to this capacity that we have as human beings, is that we do have this creative capacity. Just because things have been a certain way up to now doesn't mean they have to stay that way. And when we sing, this is an opportunity to change our vibration and to create a different feeling, a different orientation to life. So if we're in a challenging moment or a challenging period or situation, then mantra and song and recitation, they can be really powerful tools to help remind us of our deeper capacities to recreate things in new configurations, in new ways. So I think more globally that the capacity that humans do have, back in 2013, my mother died, and the following year I was in the United States, in Washington State. I was there for at least a good couple of months. I was staying with my friend and we did a lot of kirtan there. And one older man came to the house one evening and we were going to be doing some singing a bit later on. He was early. He was aware that the year before my mother had died. And he said, I'd like you to write a song inspired by your mother. And then this very simple kirtan song came through sometime after that. It's just 3 chords on the harmonium and the words just Ah Jai Ma. So we have the vowel sound Ah, which has many associations, but including this sense of wholeness and the power of manifest existence and manifest consciousness. And Jai, victory. So victory is that capacity of the mother. And what is one of the most distinct capacities of the mother? She has the capacity to, what I call, womb it. So what do I mean when I say the capacity to womb it? I mean the capacity to bring forth something more beautiful than she or we might ever have even dared dream was possible from within the existing structure. So when the mother, the woman, wombs it when she gives birth to this whole new being who's so magnificent, who's this miracle of life. And she does it from within her own structure. And yet that structure is not destroyed by that, but is actually expanded, enhanced. And some of its deeper capacities get brought forth and revealed. So I think this is a very real capacity that we have as human beings, and we need it. And in looking around in the world, looking in the mirror at ourselves, we can see sometimes we get stuck in habits that aren't really taking us in the direction of our deeper longings. And those habits may have very strong inertia. They may be very well established, and in a sense they have a life of their own because they've been existing for some time, and like everything else in existence, they want to stay in existence. And so once those habits are challenged, they have the tendency to fight back tenaciously. And those habits, they've been around for a while, so they know our weak points. They know where to hide and when is the perfect moment to ambush us and jump out and capitalize on our vulnerabilities or weaknesses or blind spots to then perpetuate that obsolete habit that isn't really taking us where we want to go. But if we have the loving presence of the mother and the patience, to gestate and bring forth new ways of being, then we can do things more beautiful than we would perhaps have even dreamed was possible. And so this is something that inspires me because, we're recording now in October 2024, but I think it would be the case any time in recent years. We don't have to look far in the world to see very disturbing and horrifying things that are happening. But I do have faith in humans' capacity to create things that build on what we've inherited, that resist the temptation to just reject or tear down what isn't perfected yet, but actually be grateful for, being born now. Our ancestors did so much work and we've got so much to be grateful for. But I think I do feel consciousness is on the rise. I see so much more awareness of things that people weren't really aware of at all, or certainly not in the environment I grew up in 30, 40 years ago, that now people are more aware of. And I do feel that one of the impacts of recent decades is that it's much harder to perpetuate this idea that the affairs of this particular country just relate to that particular place, because the reality of the interconnectedness of all life is so much more evident and apparent because of the technologies that bring us so much more closer at the day-to-day level. So I guess, short global answer to the question, I feel inspired and I would like to do more as an individual to womb it, to bring forth things that are waiting to come, that are very beautiful and that can build on what's gone before without falling into the trap of just repeating unnecessary old habits or getting down or angry about the way things haven't been ideal up to now, and instead channeling that energy towards new growth. Yeah, I think that's how I'd say it.
Wow. Beautiful, very inspiring. Thank you very much for sharing this. I feel like you almost answered all my questions already just with this one, but let's go back to the mantra that you're presenting today, and tell us a little bit about where it comes from and what the words mean.
Yeah, so Jaima, it was super simple, and so it was an older man called Bob Jones in Bellingham, Pacific Northwest, who kind of gave me the prompt and the push, if you like, just planted that seed. Yeah, you should write a song. You should allow a song to come through, give birth to a kirtan song that's really inspired by what your mother has left you with, what you want to pay tribute to, what you want to carry forwards in your life. So it was about a year since my mother's death when I was back in England, and I was in the house where I grew up in with the harmonium there. And I just started playing with these very simple chords. And then this kind of kind of just started with this ah. And then I just sang ah, and then the Jaima came. And then it was really this sense of like, in that house, when my mother died, with my father and sister, we'd been to the hospital, and we came back, and across the sky to the west, like where the sun sets, we get home, and there were these 3 vapor trails illumined with the gorgeous kind of bronzy, orangey, golden light of the sunset. And then I'd gone straight round to the back of the house to look. It was a beautiful sunset, so I wanted to look at the sky. But my father went in the front door, and then he came out the back of the house, and he showed me this card that a friend of my mother and father had delivered, talking about how she believed that we always had our guardian angels with us. And then we looked into the sky, and there's these 3 trails going off to the northwest. And my dad said, we just had this idea that her spirit's going, that's her spirit kind of thing. This was just what it felt like, you know? Mm-hmm. And he showed me the card, and he said, I think Helen would say that's her in the middle. And then that's her guardian angels either side. And after she died, I became more acutely aware of some of the things that she gave to me and to the people around her. The funeral was in a church, in the Church of England, and I read a passage from Corinthians in the New Testament, a very beautiful passage on love. And I spoke about how my mother, she didn't like go to church very often, but she incarnated Christian virtues in many ways. Like, she was a kind person, and she had a lot of strong values that she upheld in her day-to-day choices. So in this song, Jaima, it's victory to the power of the mother, if you like. But the mother from the Indic perspective is the Shakti, the creative capacities, the powers, the forces of life itself made manifest. With this song, I think the link to my mother, and then the link to this more cosmic intelligence, is the idea of we have our limitations, but if we are pragmatic about them, then we can really do quite wonderful things that do leave a significant residual blessing or positive impact on people that we encounter and on the places where we spend time. And you asked me before about what inspires me most, and I realize it's very easy to forget or to ignore how much impact our gestures and actions can make on people we meet. For example, I'm recently moved to a new country, and just the other evening I was reading a French book that I first read when I was a teenager, and somebody was walking past where I was sitting near the lake here, and this lady saw what I was reading, and then she came and started a conversation with me, talking about how wonderful the book was and the films. And being a newcomer in a place and not knowing many people, this simple act of stopping was so inspiring for me. It was so uplifting. It really made my day, kind of thing, you know? And earlier in the year when I was here, one morning I was doing some exercise, also by the lake, and then I picked up there were a lot of cigarette butts and stuff, and I was just picking a load of them up and taking them to the bin. And at one point, this person just stopped and commented and thanked me. And I wasn't doing it because I was, waiting for somebody to come and thank me, but I just had the recognition. It's like, well, when somebody sees that happening, maybe it will make them think about things in a slightly different way. I don't know, but we don't know. And it's like, it had this inspiring effect on this person who stopped and said, thank you. Just like the person who stopped and initiated a conversation with it had an inspiring effect on me. So I think that's part of what the mantra evokes. It's a very simple thing. It's like just very simple, the act of being present with another human being. At my mother's funeral, my sister mentioned when she was speaking how, say, for example, on a school trip, my mother would be there taking care of the people who maybe were just a little bit left behind, whatever. And that makes a difference in a person's life when you just meet them with presence. And I mean, the other thing about the mantra Jayima, the sound, one of its connotations is the sound of completion, the sound of wholeness. And so this is a great symbol for yoga. We're cultivating when we practice harmonization, integration, balance, wholeness. So when we sing the mantra, or we make the sound, the simple sound, it's a lovely diagnostic. Just singing or voicing that sound can help us notice how free or impeded our voice is. And it can start to move things. It can start to cleanse things. And so I find with kirtan generally, it's this very cleansing practice, and it cleans places that other techniques don't get to. And this song, so I've shared it in many different places, but sometimes people have commented they do find, I really like that. There's something very freeing about it, because it's very simple, but it is laden with a lot of feeling, what might be called in Sanskrit a rasa, flavor, or bhava, this energy that can become when we sing it. So, yeah, I think I could talk more, but...
Yeah, I think it's a great moment to experience it now. So I would love to invite you to sing it for us. Yeah,
well, feel free to just listen and observe the sound washing over you. Like, what's it like to bathe in this particular sound? But also feel free to join in, and don't feel that when you join in you need to follow me exactly. What's it like to use this as a space, a platform to then be somewhat improvisational with those sounds of Jayima, and you're singing Jai, victory, to the power of existence itself, to keep evolving and to bring forth things more beautiful than we would ever have imagined or even dared dream was possible.
Thank you.
What often happens is, because the melody is very simple, then people can kind of layer many different variations. And so that's one of the things that's nice about this song. So it becomes a very simple way for people to really just enjoy those rich R sounds and create this soundscape that's very, I would say, quite cathartic, but is also quite harmonizing. Yeah.
Yeah. I have one last question for you. What is one word that our world needs the most right now? Just one word.
Well, a Sanskrit word comes prema, which is this kind of unconditional love associated with the Divine Mother. And I think, one word, I'm torn when I go to English, because I think forgiveness and imagination. It's like the capacity to imagine a place that isn't trapped in patterns that aren't serving us anymore, and to find the depth of strength to be able to give the energy that has previously been congealed in ways that are harmful, to give that energy the chance to do something different. Because I think there's so much energy trapped in patterns of rancor or vengeance or hate and pain and trauma. There's so much energy that could be redeployed and then given the chance to do something really very different from what we might be familiar with. And I think, we can call it love, but I think it requires a certain sense of wonder, curiosity, and imagination. And it requires a lot of courage and strength to be able to forgive. But to give a possibility that you haven't had you've not seen a lot of evidence of it previously being able to take flight, to give it the chance to actually move forwards in ways it hasn't before. So it's more than one word, but I think that's what I'll say today.
Yeah, but probably you're right that prema, love, is the pathway to all the qualities that we need.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Johanna.
All right, so where can people find you and practice with you or join one of your kirtans or one of your trainings?
Thank you. So the best place to know what I'm doing is to get on my mailing list. So my website is www.jamesboagyoga.com, and there's a newsletter sign up there at the bottom of most of the pages. And I do kirtan whenever I have the opportunity. Right now I'm in Switzerland. I'm working here at the moment. I'll be in India and Sri Lanka some December and January this winter. And next year I'll be sharing in various places in the UK and Europe. So the best way would be to get on my mailing list, and then you'll know what I'm about, where I'm going to be sharing. And there are quite a lot of online resources as well. There's lots of articles, and there's quite a lot of, if you like mantras and you like Sanskrit songs, there's quite a few on my YouTube channel, and there's a few on SoundCloud. It's all accessible via the website. And that's the most reliable. And I have a whole life yoga podcast.
Yeah, of course, we will put all the links in the show notes, as always. So thank you very much, James, for your time, for your inspiring words and voice, for sharing. Wish you a wonderful rest of the day.
And to you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vielen, vielen Dank dir fürs Zuhören. Wenn dir die Folge gefallen hat und du den Podcast unterstützen möchtest, dann abonniere ihn gerne und schreibe mir eine positive Bewertung. Du kannst mir auch auf Social Media folgen und dort einen Kommentar unter dem Post zu dieser Folge hinterlassen. Schreib mir auch gerne deine Wünsche für Mantras, die du gerne hier im Podcast vorgestellt haben möchtest. Und natürlich kannst du dich auch für meinen Newsletter anmelden und und somit immer als erste von meinen aktuellen Terminen, Retreats und Podcast-Folgen erfahren. Bis ganz bald zur nächsten Folge. Deine Johanna.